Day 230 of the grown-ups back in charge. And how's it looking? Well, growth down to near recession levels, and news today of a shocking rise in inflation, a monstrous tax on us all. Now standing at a whopping 3%, prices are far higher than predicted and 50% above the Bank of England's own target. And it's all down to our amazing Chancellor, LinkedIn Rachel, someone responsible for more works of literary fiction than Charles Dickens. Not only did her budget for growth kill growth stone dead, taking Britain from the top of the G7 in July to an anorexic 0.1% today, not only did her budget for growth see staff layoffs, cancelled bonuses, frozen investment and the slashing of recruitment, not only did her budget for growth crush free enterprise with a hellish red tape blitz, which will make it even more onerous, unattractive and unaffordable for employers to take on people, not only did her budget for growth destroy the lives of farmers and pensioners, it has revived the greatest economic enemy of them all, inflation, with the cost of living for struggling Brits at its highest level in nearly a year, with a massive jump from 2.5% to 3%. Now, LinkedIn Rachel won't feel that effect as she swans around a more girl-friendly number 11, having removed portraits of those ghastly and more successful male chancellors that preceded her. She won't feel it as she sachets around in thousands of pounds worth of posh clothes paid for by a wealthy millionaire Labour donor. This is someone in Rachel Reeves, LinkedIn Rachel, so out of touch, she told the press last year that there were times when she was struggling to manage her own financial outgoings. This in spite of a reported household income of almost £250,000 at the time. So, why is inflation up? Well, the cost of transport and food have continued to rise. There was the multi-billion-pound sellout to the junior doctors and train drivers. Plus, Reeves's spiteful VAT tax raid on school fees is also impacting that headline figure. It means an interest rate cut in March is about as likely as Boris Johnson joining a monastery. Now, all of this is on top of the Bank of England slashing the 2025 growth prospects for the UK in half, following LinkedIn Rachel's best efforts in October. This is on top of the cost of government borrowing, so-called gilt yields, now higher, that's right, higher than after Liz Truss's mini budget. This is on top of news that a quarter of companies are now planning to lay people off, all thanks to the party which is in the service of working people, by putting them out of work. Make it make sense. Just as the economic news couldn't get any worse, in steps our Rach to react to today's inflation figures with some incorrect information. Well, we're used to that following Rachel's multiple lies on LinkedIn about her professional history and a story that I broke yesterday about her false claims to have submitted work to a revered economic journal. Well, the latest example of creative writing attributed to the Chancellor reads as follows. Getting more money in people's pockets is my number one mission. Since the election, we've seen year-on-year wages after inflation growing at their fastest rate, worth an extra £1,000 a year on average. Now, unfortunately, and this will surprise you, the statement wasn't true. Following a huge backlash, old LinkedIn Rachel had to get back online and write an embarrassing follow-up message, adding the rather important fact that wages after inflation are not growing at the fastest rate at all. They are growing at the fastest rate in 3 years, fine, but in fact the most impressive wage growth that we've seen in the last 5 years was in 2021 and a whopping 6.9% under those terrible Conservatives. So what is Rachel Reeves's issue? Either she doesn't have a head for numbers, which is terrifying, or she is a pathological liar, which is also terrifying. I fear it's a combination of the two. But she's not the only Labour minister with an intermittent relationship with the truth. Jonathan Reynolds has been accused of fabricating his CV after it emerged that he repeatedly described himself as a solicitor, despite never qualifying. The business secretary previously claimed on his website that he worked as a solicitor in the Manchester branch of the law firm Addleshaw Goddard before becoming an MP. He also told the Commons in 2014 that he worked as a solicitor in Manchester city centre before switching careers. Well, in fact, he didn't qualify for the title because he never finished his training contract, having quit the course in 2010 to run for Parliament. He also previously stated on his LinkedIn profile, my God, do these Labour MPs say anything that's true on LinkedIn? He said on his LinkedIn that he was simultaneously a solicitor and a trainee solicitor between 2009 and 2010. This according to screenshots obtained by the political blog Guido Fawkes, which first reported the discrepancies. Now, Mr. Reynolds also implied that he'd worked as a solicitor in a tweet in 2011, the year after he was first elected as an MP. And he said the following, it's all a matter of public record. Personally, I find being an MP better for work-life balance than being a solicitor and counsellor. Except that he wasn't a solicitor and he's never been a solicitor. Make it make sense. Mr. Reynolds' website no longer exists, while his LinkedIn now only makes reference to his role as a trainee solicitor. We got there in the end. It's ironic, really, because in my view, we're not just dealing with trainee solicitors. We're dealing with a trainee business secretary, a trainee chancellor, a trainee prime minister, and a trainee government that clearly had zero plans for power. They've been engulfed in the freebie scandal. They eviscerated the livelihoods of farmers and pensioners. They've whacked an aspiration tax on education. They've killed growth. They've reawoken unemployment and inflation. They are swelling the debt. They've given away British sovereign territory to another country at a cost to you and I of £18 billion. And the nemesis of bacon sandwiches everywhere, Ed Miliband, has closed up our vast oil and gas resources in the North Sea in order to bet the house on flaky renewables. Just as America is the latest superpower to ditch net zero. Make it make sense. Could this be the worst government in history? Well, it's certainly the most embarrassing. Take a listen to the leader of the free world, Donald Trump, reacting to a request by Keir Starmer for a meeting.
I just signed a letter to him. He asked for a meeting, and I agreed to the meeting. We're going to have a friendly meeting. Very good. We have a lot of good things going on. But he asked to come and see me, and I just accepted his asking.
Do you have a date for that, sir? And what do you hope to
Very soon. I think he wants to come next week or the week after.
And what do you hope to discuss?
I don't know. It was his request, not mine.
So embarrassing, so damning. Well, this is the same Sir Keir Starmer who was humiliated by Germany, who quite rightly rejected his nonsensical idea to send British troops to the war zone that is Ukraine. Isn't it funny how this unpopular Prime Minister has offered to deploy troops while doing so badly in the polls? Is he willing to sacrifice British servicemen and women in order to prop up his ailing premiership? You tell me. I couldn't possibly say. This government are pathologically dishonest, incompetent, cruel, stupid and wrong. When Labour said they were going to change Britain, that's one thing they weren't lying about. But they didn't say for the worst. Bring back Rishi Sunak. All is forgiven.